Viewer discretion is advised.
Boom, perfect timing.
The attorney for the former student says his client was thrown to the ground and choked by a school resource officer in what he says was an excessive response to an offensive hand gesture.
What's so striking is you send kids to school for an education and you think it's a safe place. You don't think anything like this would ever happen. That police officer's there to protect these kids, not to beat them up.
Michael Blanchett, a student at Narragansett High School, was walking through the school hallway when he was approached by Officer Kyle Rooney, a school resource officer assigned to the Narragansett school system by the Narragansett Police Department. The video footage reveals that Blanchett and Officer Rooney engaged in a conversation, but after approximately 10 seconds, Blanchett waved his middle finger at Officer Rooney. In response, Officer Rooney performed a takedown maneuver, forcibly bringing Blanchett to the ground. Only the two individuals are visible in the camera's perspective as they struggle for about 30 seconds. During this time, two other students pass by, and then another faculty member and two additional individuals seem to observe the encounter. The struggle between Officer Rooney and Blanchett continues for a few more minutes until Blanchett is eventually handcuffed and escorted away. In 2024, I conducted an interview with Michael Blanchett regarding his distressing encounter with Officer Kyle Rooney. I have included a significant portion of our interview in this video, as Mr. Blanchett provides valuable additional information that adds context to this case.
Full name, Michael Blanchett. I was born June 21st, 2001, and at the time of this incident, I was 16 years old. So it was on February 9th, 2018, and this wasn't a normal school day for me. That week was a very rough week for me. I had gotten jumped by one of the students at the school. I thought he was one of my friends, but he just kind of turned around and jumped me one day. And the reason for them jumping me was there's another kid who was recording it, and I found out afterwards as I was sitting in school. This is how my week went. They were selling the video throughout the school, so it was just a way for them to make money off of like someone's misery. The entertainment for the school, I guess.
No. Nothing personal. No. Nothing personal, man. You're gonna stop now. When are you gonna stop? Wait. When are you gonna stop? Stop. You know what? Why are you doing this, guy? For Frank. Why? For Frank. Dude, I didn't. Nothing personal. Dude, I'm not gonna hit you, Mikey. I'm not gonna hit you, Mikey. Mikey, I'm not gonna hit you now. Do it. I'm not gonna hit you now. Hit me.
Yeah, I know it was all the same week, but yeah, you could basically say I got jumped by some kid outside the school. Then a day or a few after that, I got taken down by the police officer, Officer Rooney, inside the school. It was very depressing having that week be filled with everyone making fun of me and laughing at the video of me getting jumped. And so that's all just like in the school that I have to attend to every day. And that created a lot of depression and resulting in some self-harm. And yeah, I really was not feeling like I wanted to be alive. It's very triggering topic bringing up suicide and all of that. And but I was still having to go to that same setting where it's kids just making fun of me for getting jumped.
During our interview, Michael Blanchett disclosed that he had a previous negative encounter with Officer Kyle Rooney. According to Mr. Blanchett, approximately 1 year before the incident in question, Officer Rooney allegedly used excessive force against him. This implies that Officer Rooney was aware of Mr. Blanchett's identity on the day of the incident inside Narragansett High School, when the altercation with the teen took place.
After that, coming into the school, seeing Officer Rooney, who I had a prior incident with outside of the school, being restrained by him, I would try to avoid him as much as I could. If the class was in a certain part of the school, I would take the long way to get to class if it meant avoiding him. With this being a very rough week for me, I had a lot of depression and resulted some self-harm, and some students had seen that I had like a cut on me, and they reported it to a teacher, and the school has to take that very seriously, which they did. And they had me write a letter as to why I did that cut, and they sent me to the hospital to get evaluated. In that letter, I actually write like, I just don't really want to be alive anymore. I have to come to school and be reminded of the most traumatic incident that's ever happened to me every day, and no one's doing anything about it. If I try to mention anything about it, they just look at me like I'm crazy. And I went to the hospital to get evaluated, and they were very understanding of that. It seemed like from their perspective that I wasn't a threat to anyone else, and so they released me after saying I was perfectly safe to go back to school. I went immediately from the hospital to the school. My mother had driven me. What really matters is once I got into the school, Officer Rooney was sitting in the back of the office. He appeared to be looking at the security cameras, just checking out, making sure everything's all right in the school. And I check in with the office. He sees me check in with the office, and I tell the office, it's like the office ladies that you check in with there. I tell them I'm going to go to my ALP room after they informed me it was lunchtime. Being an ALP student, I could eat in the ALP room or I could eat in the lunchroom. So I let them know where I was going. Once I got to the ALP room, the ALP teacher also informs me it's lunchtime. Where would I like to eat? And just coming from the hospital to the school and it being lunchtime, I thought it was the perfect chance for me to get a movement break in, which is a part of my IEP, which is the individual educational plan. It's like whenever I feel like I'm getting a lot of anxiety, I can ask to take a movement break, just a couple laps around the hallway. And she gives me permission to do that. And the school's very small. I literally walk 30 yards away from the classroom. Between that walk to when I got to Officer Rooney, I had seen one of my friends exit, I believe it was the bathroom. You can see him in the video wearing a red Supreme sweater. And we're talking about just this new hip hop group releasing an album. And it was really ironic because this was one of the only kids that I knew who was very against vaping. He didn't vape at all, and he would actually try to get other kids to stop vaping. But this officer around the corner says in his report that he heard me talking to this kid about getting some Juuls, which is a type of vape pen, and that was his reason for stopping me. When he stopped me, though, all he was doing, Officer Rooney instantly started yelling at me for a hall pass. There was no mention ever about vaping or jewels. I assumed that that was his next step, to see that if I didn't have permission to be in the hallway, he was going to find a reason to perform an illegal search and seizure of me. But because I responded with, I have permission to be here right now. It's my ALP teacher right around the corner if you want to go check with her. That really, I feel like, changed how he escalated things. And he just, I couldn't really make sense of it logically. He didn't really respond to that. And he just continued to yell at me for the hall pass, which that doesn't even exist in my school. It's just a very small school. You get permission from the teacher, and it usually works out just fine, except for that one day with Officer Rooney there. Yeah, so it was very odd because I don't think he was expecting me to have permission. And at that point, I just saw it wasn't going anywhere. My anxiety was getting worse with all the yelling, and I just wanted to turn around and leave. And my middle finger was kind of like my wall to say, this is enough. I'm gonna put my foot down to this. This is not right. And that's when I try to take a step and turn around, and he reaches out and he grabs my hand. The video versus inside my head, how I felt and what I thought. The second he grabbed me, I don't think anything in terms of resisting it would look good in my favor. And so in my head, the second he grabbed me, I was just going to do absolutely nothing, show him my hands to get put into cuffs to show that I was compliant and not resisting at all. But the way that he grabbed me and tossed me around, I wasn't even able to give him my hands because he grabbed my hand at the start and pulled me towards him and tried doing this move called a leg sweep. And at that point, he's saying he's basically arresting me. You know, he's telling me I'm going to jail. And so I'm trying to show him my hands so he can put them in cuffs. But the second he slammed me to the ground, he starts putting the tip of his elbow into my neck. And I know there's a lot of scientific research on the tip of the elbow. It's a very hard, pointy part of your body. When using to strike against someone with enough force, the tip of your elbow can be as deadly as the tip of a knife. And the way that I wish I could show this to you, but once I realized what he was doing, it actually scared me a lot thinking about it. If this were to happen to someone else. So he had his elbow on my neck, but he also was sort of doing he was laying on the ground and lifting up, almost doing a push-up, only using his elbow pressing down on my neck. So that's all of his body weight and force going into that one point of the elbow into my neck, and I couldn't breathe. I was trying to get him just away from that area so I could breathe. And at one point in the video, I cross my legs. I'm very calm, and that's when a teacher going into the nurse's office. And at these moments in the video, I'm hoping that someone will see that I'm trying to stay calm and can someone get this guy off of me? This is not right. And you'll notice the second the teacher closes the door, it's hard to tell, but he does like a little bit of like a snap, and that's him putting like more pressure on me the second that no one's watching. And when the teacher comes into the video, you kind of see like he starts grooming my head to make it appear like nothing bad is happening. And then the second she turns away, he goes right back to putting all the pressure onto me. And you see, that's when I start having a struggle trying to breathe again. And at some points in the video, I start flailing my arm out. I remembered I was hoping that if I held my arm out, someone would grab me and pull me out to get me away from him. And that never happened. During the time that he was restraining me on the ground, he was telling me about different moves that he was doing to me. One was a bicep cutter, which would stop circulation or blood flow to that area. And I was just worried this is going to continue back to the police station.
Michael Blanchant was arrested and charged with resisting arrest and disorderly conduct.
In the report, Officer Rooney states how he had went to my dad to inform him of the news of me trying to attack him. So my dad picks me up and is very disappointed with me. He was able to reach out to everyone, giving his side of the story before anyone could hear my side of the story, which resulted in the story being told in a way that makes him look less guilty so he isn't held accountable for anything. Based on what my dad had said to me right after he picked me up and talking to him years after this, in that day, he told me, Officer Rooney told me what happened. Do you have anything to say? And I would then start to say my side of the story, and he's like, no, son, I already know the story. You can't try to switch the story up or make yourself look better. He already told me that you tried to punch him, and as my son, I never raised you to try and punch a cop or attack a cop. And I would call it like, this is kind of exaggerated. He kind of like disowned me at that time, and what he would do is he just ignored me and refused to talk to me after that because he was just so disappointed in me based on whatever Officer Rooney told him about me. And so those were like the last years of my childhood. And I would say Officer Rooney 100% ruined it for me.
In the end, your father does realize that you, in fact, were telling the truth the whole time. And can you describe what ends up happening there?
Oh, he does not like getting lied to at all, and he was very upset that someone who took an oath to our country, an oath to our flag to protect our citizens, had lied directly to his face about his own son. And it's almost like words can't describe how he felt the last remaining years of his son's childhood. He couldn't spend it the way that he wanted to with me because of the lies that Officer Rooney told him about me. But once he saw the video, he really wanted to make things like family again and make things right. And he apologized to me, and he just was so astonished and flabbergasted that this police officer lied directly to his face. He told me that Officer Rooney just blatantly lied to his face about me, his son. That really ruined the family for a couple years, I must say.
What ends up happening in court? How does that all get resolved?
Oh, yes, yes. So I make it to court, and because of the judge sees all of these lies, it's like 2 pages of lies about me. She needs to determine, is this true about this kid? Because if she kind of like lets me go and I go and do something bad, that's like looks really bad on the court. And so she needs to make an accurate ruling. And in order for her to do that, because of a couple of pages of lies that she needs to analyze and prove, it took 2 years of me being on probation. And that was kind of how the deal was. It was like, okay, so you're saying these are all lies about you. Well, if you can go on probation for a couple years and behave, then I could see that this is not true about you. That's how like the judge viewed it. I could not like leave the state and things like that. I would have to get permission to leave the state. She was kind of like, this report says that you're not a good person. If you can behave as a good person while under probation for a couple years, I could say, based on your record, that these are lies about you from the past. And so I accepted that. I was like, okay, that sounds good. Because I was like, I'll totally be able to do that. I'm just gonna live how I kind of do normally every day, because I don't really commit crimes and such. So it worked out totally fine. Went 2 years without any trouble, and so the judge saw, wow, like you really don't cause all these problems that this report says. And she ruled that everything I did was justified, and me giving the middle finger to the police was a freedom, or to Officer Rooney was a freedom of speech, which I was allowed to express. And none of those charges stuck with me, I believe. They all got dropped.
The attorney for the former student says his client was thrown to the ground and choked by a school resource officer in what he says was an excessive response to an offensive hand gesture.
What's so striking is you send kids to school for an education and you think it's a safe place. You don't think anything like this would ever happen. That police officer's there to protect these kids, not to beat them up.
Moments before this, attorney Amado DeLuca says his client, Michael Blanchett, a 17-year-old high school senior at the time, was walking through the halls, troubling no one, when school resource officer Patrolman Kyle Rooney began questioning whether or not Blanchett was allowed to be there. This surveillance footage was filed with the civil complaint. DeLuca says the 8-minute video shows Blanchett was singled out, and that's one reason why they took it to court.
Look at the entire video and watch it from the very beginning. You'll see students walking back and forth in the same corridor. For some reason, this police officer stops at this particular boy.
According to court documents, the student has an individualized educational plan. DeLuca says Blanchett was allowed to be outside of class without a hall pass. The altercation escalates when Blanchett makes an offensive hand gesture towards the officer. You can see the officer take him down, then the pair struggles for several minutes. DeLuca says Blanchett was charged with misdemeanor crimes following this incident, but tells us those charges were eventually dropped. And we also reached the Narragansett town manager and the police chief. Both told us they could not comment. I'm Sheena Loshudo, Eyewitness News.
I really loved how the news covered it. I thought they did a brilliant job. But when I went into the comments of the videos, all of the local people from around here, they would just start creating this false image of me in case there is anyone else around the world that would get whiff of this. I believe they wanted the poster image of their town to just look good, and they didn't want me to tarnish their image at all. So they just expressed in the comments that I was a school shooter and the officer needed to take me out.
There's a Facebook page. It looks like they are in support of Officer Rooney over this incident. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, with the mindset of the town that I was seeing, people coming into my work expressing how they felt in a very bad way. They felt like what I did was wrong, what Rooney did was right. So they expressed how they would want to support him, and that led to this Facebook page being created. I'm not sure who exactly created it. I did see there was like specific people involved in the production of these signs, shirts, and stickers. And what happened was, when this went viral on the news, as I mentioned before, I believe this town has a really good poster image. They don't want the town to look bad. So this news coverage, they had to figure out a way to kind of counter everything that's said on the news. And through this Facebook page, they're able to create this image of who Officer Rooney is for the rest of the world to see if anyone wants to look into this case. And I don't really have like a big like social media platform, and so it was really easy for everyone just to see his side of the case and to make him look really good, which was the purpose of this Facebook page for them. But I believe it was called Gansett Stands with Officer Rooney. I started to find out about it when I saw the signs set up at my neighbor's house, and I was confused as to, are they in support of him? Are they in support of me? I just saw these signs with his name and badge number on it. And so I started digging into it. And once I got onto that page and came across it, they were holding rallies up the street from my house at the only big shopping plaza in this town. So they really were able to get everyone to come together for these rallies. And I wasn't too fond how it's like right up the street from my parents' house. Now, every time I step outside, my neighbors are showing their support for Officer Rooney. And it got to the point that they felt that their support was very strong for Officer Rooney, so strong that they mentioned on their page that if Officer Rooney had lost in court, they were going to throw a riot outside of the court. And yeah, at that point, I was just kind of like, all right, I kind of understand what this Facebook page is. Oh, I should mention, I think this is how he was able to get so much support from this town as well. This is in Rhode Island, this is one of the wealthiest towns in the state. And I guess the best way to put it is a lot of the kids that walk around the hallways are like these preppy honors students. And so I was kind of the only kid with like the long hair, looked like a stoner sort of person. And so all the other kids in the hallway, I remember like I wrote it down specifically what he would say. It was something along the lines, he would just say like, oh, how's your day going? Did you see the game last night? And he was very friendly with everyone else, but he looked at me like I was a criminal, and he just instantly would target me. And it was much different than all the other students. Although I had a couple other students that I knew that he targeted as well, that came up to me afterwards and expressed that they're happy that I'm going after to stop Officer Rooney from all the wrong that he does. But for the most part, he's very friendly with the other kids in the school, but just looks at certain individuals like criminals, which is definitely the problem here and why he was able to get so much support from the majority.
How long were you suspended?
I had a 5-day suspension.
Okay. After the
Mhm.
5-day suspension, and you're realizing that he's getting all this support, you return to the same school, correct?
Yes, yes.
What is
And
that like?
we actually had a meeting with a lot of the staff in the school, and it was them like immediately when I got back into school, it was they're discussing a plan involved with my IEP plan on how I was just kind of gonna take the steps back into my routine at school. And what that meeting was all about actually was them convincing me to transfer to a different school because they were not going to, they explained to me Officer Rooney is going to be at the school still, and you would have to see him, continue to see him every day that you're here. And they said it would probably be best if you transfer to another school that has more resources for you. And I thought, well, that's probably the best idea because if they're not going to fire him, it's been causing a lot of trauma. It's just going to cause more trauma seeing him. So I decided to transfer schools immediately. Yeah, it's odd because it was them even convincing me to transfer schools so they could keep their police officer there, Officer Rooney.
Two years later, the charges against Mr. Blanchett were dismissed. As soon as he turned 18, he decided to file a federal lawsuit against Officer Rooney, claiming that his constitutional rights were violated. The lawsuit argues that Officer Rooney's actions included an unjust seizure, the use of excessive force, and infringements on Mr. Blanchett's freedom of speech protected by the First Amendment. Okay, so I understand you filed a lawsuit. How soon after the incident did you file this lawsuit?
It was around when I turned 18. I mean, the timing of everything just worked out like that. 16 years old, a couple years on probation brings me to 18 years old, and I'm now an adult at that point. And I felt it was the right time now that the court ruled that everything I did in that incident was justified. So now I wanted the court to look at his side to see if there's any wrongdoing for him illegally arresting me.
And with the lawsuit that you filed against him and the school board, what is the end result of this lawsuit?
The end result of this was a release of all claims.
And can you explain what's a release of all claims for those individuals that may be watching this that don't have no idea what that means?
So I had a very lengthy report of complaints and claims that I was going to bring up to court to charge against him, and releasing him of all those claims for the settlement means that he is not held accountable for anything that I say about him or claim about him or complain about him.
So in order for you to get the settlement amount that they were offering you is if you agree that there's no wrongdoing on his behalf.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah. So that's, yes, 100%. That's why it's like, it's very a weird like loophole in this interview where it's like, even though I'm saying all these claims about him, which I would say are completely true, I have released him of being held accountable to any of the claims that I'm saying about him because of the settlement that I made with everyone that I was prosecuting.
What was the settlement amount?
It was $75,000. I should mention 25,000 went to my lawyers. So that leaves me with 50,000.
And why people watching this are going to say, why did you let him get away with this? Why if he had done all these things and this is in fact true, everything you're saying about him, why not go all the way and receive the justice that you deserve?
So, with how he wrote up his police report and how he wrote it up and went around town gaining all this support to make it appear that he was not in the wrong at all and that he was not committing any criminal activity and I was the only one in the wrong. This is actually a really good point to get into how this happened with why I did the releasing of the claims. When I went to the hospital, in my head, I was like very excited about the possibility of being released to my parents and not going back to the police. And so I did not want to stay there any longer at all. And I didn't ask to get checked out medically. I just wanted to go home and away from all of that. And that was a big issue in this case because I still feel some pain and injury till this day for what happened. But by the time I informed my doctors about this, it had been like a year after this incident. So he was unable to provide any claim to the court that my injury was caused by Officer Rooney. So in my case, not only I couldn't charge him criminally, I also couldn't charge him for bodily harm, which is a big thing there that he was able to get away with. You know, he admits that the slam was so hard that it even hurt him. So I was definitely in pain during that as well. To go into the process of why I settled it is I always like to say it's a bit unsettling for me because it was a jury process. Even though it went up to the Supreme Court, it was seen as a civil matter and it went into a 12-person jury. And the way that this jury is built is Officer Rooney's party gets to choose 6 of those people, and then my party gets to choose the other 6. But then both parties get together and they interview all of the people who are on the jury, and they can say if they accept this person on the jury or not. And so both sides agreed that these people are fit for the jury to view this case. But I was not certain because of how this police report was built with a lot of lies about me. If anyone on the jury has had any traumatic incidents, they could get triggered when hearing this police report of lies and rule against me, I felt, especially with the use of the N-word with the hard R. I figured the police officer had put that in there knowing that when the court or someone on a jury reads that, they would rule in favor of him and against me.
And to be clear, you never said the N-word with the hard R. This is a complete fabrication in this police report.
100% that was fabricated and just 100% a lie. And I was worried about all those lies, how the jury would interpret that and view me after reading all of that. I felt like their image of me would have changed a lot. And yeah, they would have most likely ruled a lot of things in his favor, I felt. And only 2 out of those 12 people need to rule in his favor. So I would need 11 out of those 12 people to rule in my favor, and 6 of them are basically like on his side essentially. So I didn't like those odds at all. I figured if I were to go into the jury and let them rule this out, and if they rule in favor of Officer Rooney based on all the lies that he fabricated, they would gain all the money that they raised in their Facebook page in support of Officer Rooney. They would get away scot-free and feel like they could do this to anyone else, which is just so wrong. If I saw that my town was very supportive of me and wanting to bring justice to this corrupt police officer, Officer Rooney, the town of Narragansett, I would have went full out through the whole entire court process. But I saw my town didn't even support me as a whole in this case. So I was convinced the jury was not going to as much as well.
In April of 2023, the American Civil Liberties Union, or ACLU of Rhode Island, announced a $75,000 out-of-court settlement. The ACLU had filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of Michael Blanchett. The settlement, which avoids the need for a trial, was reached with the school district, who agreed to pay $75,000 without admitting liability. The police chief, Sean Corrigan, stated that Officer Rooney remains assigned to the high school, as no fault was found in the settlement, and that the police department thoroughly investigates all use of force incidents. In other words, nothing happened to Officer Kyle Rooney. He was never disciplined or reprimanded for his use of excessive force against the 16-year-old Michael Blanchett. If you could say anything to Officer Rooney, what would you tell him?
I would ask him because he has a son who's the same age as me. I would ask him if he would put and do that to his son and have him go through all that pain and suffering that he put me through.
After this experience, has your views changed on the police?
It's weird because in Rhode Island, I had a lot of anxiety built up inside me about the police after these incidents. But when I moved to Massachusetts, I had gotten pulled over a couple times for like just a tail light that went out, and it's officers that don't know anything about me or who I am. And those ones made me feel a lot better. So I've seen there are some good cops out there, but I realize there's an issue where since there's a corrupt union or a corrupt police chief, the good cops are unable to get rid of any of the bad cops. And so I am very aware that basically it's created my opinion of the police to be every cop is a human, and every human can choose to be a hero or a villain. And a lot of cops do that. I have to thank you for creating this platform, and I would like to express to others, even if you have the whole town against you, this is a very small area of Rhode Island. You don't have to be limited to what those other people think or view, because if you stay silent about it, thinking that this town doesn't support you, like in my case, it's just going to get swept under the rug, and it can happen to someone else again and again. So it's very important that even if you don't think you have support, just know there are people in this world that want to put an end to corruption and bring justice to all the wrongdoings that happen with police brutality.